Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and today I'm going for another finisher in my Fatal Friday series. Now, Fatal Friday is when I use the main roster and the Kameo fighters from Mortal Kombat 1. I take them into the Kombat League, and I try to get their unique finishers like their Brutalities and their Fatalities. And I am teaming up Scorpion and the Kameo Motaro in order to highlight Motaro's brutality, Hoofing It. Now, Hoofing It is the brutality version of his single little tail laser that he shoots. And as simple as Hoofing It sounds, since it's just a single tail laser shot, and there's not really a distance requirement to it, you would think that this one would be really simple. But for some reason, I was having a lot of trouble trying to get this brutality. For some reason, whenever I tried to combo into it, it just would not activate. Even doing Scorpion's spear throw into the tail laser seemed to not work. So I got to the point to where I just stopped trying to combo into this, and then towards the end of the fight when the opponent was on super low health, I was basically just trying to backdash away just enough to summon Motaro for a single laser tail shot, and then just hoping that it would activate the brutality, which actually took a lot longer than I thought it would. Now, it's still nowhere near as long as some other Kameo brutalities like the Knife to Meet You brutality for Kano, or I can't remember the name of it, but the Grenade brutality for Striker, but still it took a while. Right now, I have a really good life lead against Subzero. They're basically one touch away from death, and I have over half my life still, so this is the exact scenario I want in the final round, which first round's over, I won it. I really want this second round to go as well as the previous, and then we'll be in excellent position to go for the Hoofing It brutality for Motaro. Because then my opponent will be on low enough health to where theoretically the brutality should activate if we hit it. But also in the event that they block it or something like that, I would have enough health to kind of stall for a little while and allow Motaro's Kameo gauge to recharge. So yeah, round one is kind of exactly what I wanted for the final round, so I got a little bit early, but hopefully we can kind of repeat that. But so far the fight has actually been pretty close against Sub-Zero in this second round, with both of us having about the same amount of health, although I do start to pull away here with a few combos being landed. And eventually after landing, I think, two really modest combos, I end up getting the life lead I want with them on very low health, and I retreat and I go for that brutality.
Brutality. Scorpion wins.
And there it is, that was the Hoofing It brutality for Motaro. Fortunately, my opponent just jumped straight in the air whenever I summoned Motaro, and by the time they hit the ground again, the laser hit him, the brutality activated, and we got to enjoy it all the way up to the point that Motaro knocked him off his feet, teleported, and then reappeared just in time to slam his foot through the skull of Sub-Zero, shattering it into several pieces. And this was the point I got very disappointed because the set was cut short after just one match. The game became desynchronized, which I guess explains why it was taking so long to load, and then it just completely dropped. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a quandary because I don't like to do these brutality videos unless, I have actually completed an entire set. I don't necessarily need to win the entire set, but I do want it to have been completed. Because leaving the video as is would essentially mean that it's about a 3-minute video, which is much shorter than I would like. The problem was, like I mentioned earlier, this was a brutality that I was having some trouble trying to get. Like, right there against Sub-Zero, it may have looked kind of easy, but that took me a long time to pull off for some reason. So I really didn't want to continue going for the brutality after I just got it, but yet the video was too, short. So I came up with another idea. I would try to get the brutality one more time against an additional opponent, and then add that into the video so we get 2 different sets being played out.
Was it worth it, training with the Shaolin?
Let me show you what I learned.
Take 1. Action.
So yeah, this matchup against this individual using smoke would be the second set that I would be going into, trying to get this brutality for, Motaro. Although I wasn't going to kill myself over it, if I could not get the brutality against whatever opponents I went against next after a few tries, I'd leave it alone, and I would just go ahead and go with the footage of me going against Sub-Zero and then getting the brutality against him. But I figured in order to try and get the video length that I wanted, and also for the potential of getting the brutality multiple times, it was worth it to at least try and go back into the Kombat League and try to earn that brutality an additional time, or ideally multiple times, but we will see what happens. So far in the match against this person using smoke, things have been going pretty good. I don't have the massive life lead that I had against the previous Sub-Zero user, but at no point have I felt like I was really out of control of this first round, so hopefully that trend continues as we press on to the rest of this initial match of the set. And it's at this point that I kind of had a little realization about my selection of opponents so far in the Kombat League for this video. Now, I did not plan it this way, especially since things kind of went awry whenever I was trying to get this brutality and that person got desynchronized before, but each person that I have fought against has been using somebody with the Lin Kuei, to include myself using Scorpion. Now, granted, in the story mode they defect and start the Shiro Ryu, but I'm still going to call them part of the Lin Kuei for right now just to make my point. So yeah, initially it was Scorpion versus Sub-Zero with the Sektor Kameo, all Lin Kuei. And then unfortunately, after I got the brutality, game desynchronized, had to go find somebody else and try again. The person I got was this individual using smoke and also using the Kameo Sektor. So again, all Lin Kuei. So yeah, this is going to be a very Lin Kuei heavy episode. And on top of that, we're getting to cover all three of the brothers. Now I used to just call Bi-Han and Kuai Liang the Sub-Zero brothers, but well, one of them is not a Sub-Zero anymore, he's a Scorpion. And then you also throw in Smoke as their adoptive brother, so I'm not really sure what to call them right now. I'm just going to call them brothers until I think of something better. Yep, the three brothers. And after a pretty good round one to start off this first match of the set, things kind of took a turn for me in the setup. Like, Smoke won the second round very decisively, like it really wasn't all that close for me. So it kind of felt like I was losing my grasp on this fight, and I was just trying to salvage it, which is not a great thing to be thinking to yourself when you're only 2 rounds into the entire set. But it did kind of feel that way, I don't know. Maybe I was just a little bit too burnt out with Scorpion trying to go for this brutality, and I was just making bad decisions. It's kind of hard to say in hindsight. Now in the third round, things were starting to feel a little bit better, but I was still kind of making some odd decisions when it came to the fight. Like, for some reason I was in some occasions putting myself in the corner against Smoke, which is not a great place to be, pretty much regardless of who you're fighting against. But in any case, our lives were at around similar comparable points. So unlike the previous 2 rounds, at least it wasn't super decisive who was doing better than the other in the final round. It was pretty close, all things considered. And our opponent Smoke decides they're going to try and go for a fatality, but I guess they messed up their buttons and that doesn't end up happening, and we're just going to go ahead and move on to the second match of the set.
Our resolve cannot waver, brother.
I'm offended that you think mine has.
Take 1. Action!
So yeah, that last match in the final round went down to the wire. And in a situation where it could have gone either way, I do miss a big opportunity because eventually Smoke decides that he is going to do his overhead teleport. I block it, but I do a very poor job of punishing it because all I do is just a little low poke. When in all actuality, since I had Fatal Blow available, I could have done just about any combo I wanted into Spear and then activated that Fatal Blow. Now, granted, Smoke had 3 bars of meter, so he probably would have just broke it, but still, the opportunity was definitely there. Nevertheless, all those things are just what-if scenarios at this point. I lost, it happened, we're moving on, and now we are in the second match of the set. And yet again, we're pretty close in health, so it looks like this first round is going to be pretty close in its finale. Yeah, I guess I have about 300 more health than him, something like that, which seems like it should be a comfortable lead, but whenever a person has Fatal Blow available, I do not feel comfortable at all with just around 300 more health than the opponent, because one good combo and a lack of breaker, that's all it takes for a person to suddenly come back from what should have been a comfortable lead for you. Fortunately, he does not end up getting that opportunity against me, and I kind of just low kick him a bunch of times until eventually his health runs out. So yet again, I take the first round of one of these matches. Now let's just try and stop the snowballing effect that we had before, where my opponent kind of just steamrolled their way to a victory in the very first match after losing the first round. Definitely don't want to be repeating that again. And at this point, it is really hard to imagine that possibility coming true because I am pretty close to full health. They are below 30%. That's a pretty gigantic life deficit, and while I've definitely seen people come back from that, I really don't see it happening here. And that little hunch of mine turned out to be correct because Smoke did not last much longer than that, and now we're going into the third and final match of the set.
We'll soon meet the Lin Kuei in battle.
It will be our last with them.
Take 1. Action!
I will say I do appreciate my opponent letting those intro dialogues run. Ever since those were introduced into the Kombat League matchups back in Season 3, I think. I really enjoyed getting to see the interactions between my character and whoever they're fighting against because, surprisingly, as long as I've played this game, I have not heard that many of them. Most of the time I'm hearing those intros for the very first time whenever I'm trying to use them in the Kombat League. A lot of people want to skip over them, and I completely understand why. These things tend to run a little bit long anyway, especially if you're fighting somebody on a similar kind of skill level to yourself, and it goes into a third match like this one, and they can be a bit lengthy. But still, I like to hear them, and I certainly like to include them in these videos where I can, so I do appreciate that they were willing to let those run. Especially since, in this case, I believe all three dialogues between Scorpion and Smoke have been different for each of the matches. So we're getting something unique each time. Man, this is going to be a really close finish for this first round, and I have dropped lots of opportunities, and I'm basically just pushing random buttons to win my way through the very first round. Which, I do win it, and only need one more round to win the entire set. But of course, just winning the set is not the only goal. Granted, I do want to win it. But preferably, I'd like to win it while also getting the Hoofing It brutality one more time. Now, if I do not get it again, that is fine. I got it against Subzero, that's enough for me. But still, I would really like to have that brutality. At least more than once. And in a fight that was not, completely derailed by desynchronization. And speaking of that desynchronization, I'm very fortunate in the sense that I have not had to deal with that in a really long time. Like, I know that was a pretty bad issue back during Season 2 and Season 3. I don't really recall it being a problem during Season 4, but maybe I just got lucky or I've forgotten since then. And in Season 5 now, I don't think I've had it happen a single time, so yeah, I'm really happy that is over because that was just a really frustrating thing to deal with. Especially if you had a really good match going on. Like, if you felt like you were in really good position to go for one of those finishers or something like that, and the game just desynchronizes on you and drops the match, it's kind of hard to stay motivated all that much because you'd put all that work into the previous match and then, well, it was all for nothing. And as you can tell, I'm kind of risking this round. I'm trying to weaken Smoke as much as possible so I can go for the brutality, even though I'm on pretty low health myself. But like I said, I want that brutality. I want to pull it off. So even if it costs me the round, I'm going for it. And it did in fact cost me that round. Smoke ended up winning it, although I definitely had the opportunity. I summoned Motaro, and had it landed, I'm very confident that the brutality would have activated. But Smoke blocked it, and then proceeded to win that round, so I no longer have the luxury of having a round that I can just throw away and win the entire set still. It all comes down to this round. Whoever wins it wins the entire thing, so I am still going to try and go for the brutality, but if it comes down to it, I would much rather just go ahead and win the set and end the video on a high note. And this final round is shaping up to be entirely in my favor because I have almost full health again, and Smoke is down to about 30% health again. So I should have the freedom to try and go for this brutality quite a bit by the time this round is over, so long as I do weaken Smoke just a little bit more. Don't want to kill him just yet, but we need him to be in a situation where one hit will do it. And then we need Motaro to do the rest. And yeah, with that much life and a decent amount of time remaining, we can screw around a little bit and try to make this happen. And we have already tried to go for it a couple of times. The first time, I think Smoke blocked it. The second time, he ends up hitting Motaro before the tail laser can happen. So at this point, the strategy is just run like hell and stall as much as possible without killing Smoke. But I think I'm going to lose if I do that, so
There's much more to come.
Brutality. Scorpion wins.
So I ultimately elected to just go with the consolation prize and throw out the any way you slice it brutality for Scorpion. So even though it is not the brutality I wanted, at least we get an additional brutality to highlight in this video, and we do get to end it on the high note of a brutality and a victory of another set. And even though we only got the brutality once, the Hoofing It brutality from Motaro, I will be sure to show it one more time at the very end of the outro, that way we can enjoy it one final time before we part ways on this Fatal Friday. But ideally, I would have been able to stall and run away from Smoke until eventually the Kameo gauge for Motaro would have recharged, and then we at least would have had one, maybe two more tries at the brutality. But that just was not working out. Smoke had managed to chip us all the way down to below 30% health as well, which meant while he may have been one hit away from death, all he really needed was one combo to finish me off as well. So I made the decision I'd rather have the victory than lose trying to go for the brutality I wanted, and went for a different brutality instead. All in all, though, it was a pretty fantastic match. So even though our fight with Sub-Zero at the very beginning of this episode did get cut short due to desynchronization, we got the brutality we wanted against him, and then we got one really good fight on top of that. And I'm pretty sure I can live with that for this episode. So, with those brutalities out of the way, there's really not too much more to say. Just thank you for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed it and the finisher that was shown off in it. Well, both of them. If you did, feel free to check out some of the other stuff I have on the Thor's Entertainment channel. I do have other finisher videos just like this under the Mortal Kombat 1 online playlist. But with that out of the way, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Brutality. Scorpion wins.